Okay. We'll deal sponsors and then we'll go on to today. Okay, a year of learning by children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren of Toby Paris, Saratova, Bat Yisrael Dov in her memory. Charlie Gelfenstein and Sam Levine in memory of Ramona Levine, Rachel Mata Bat Asher. Friends of Nina Monester, Nechama Azna Bat Yitzchak Aharon. Many friends of Stephen Vigdor, Lezechen Nishmat, Simcha Melech Ben Meir Leib Halevi. Friends of Marcy Kurtz in memory of her great niece, Leah Bracha Bas Rivka. Isaac and Evelyn Blachor in memory of his sister, Vivian Kestenbaum, Kaya Rachel Bas Israel. Month of Learning by Carol and Josh Sanborn in memory of her mother, Yita Bat Nachman Ben Yamin. Mel and Haran Haller in memory of his brother, Yaakov Ben Abraham. Perry and Jill Meltzer in memory of his father, David Ben Fishel Halevi, and her mother, Bella Bat Abraham. A week of learning of Trudy Iger in memory of her father, Eliyahu Ben Yosef Mordechai. And that is it for today. May the Neshamas have an Aliyah, Crank Rafia, Velti Yeshua, Shema Toya, Kol B'nai Yisrael, a good Gaben Shtia. Amen.
There's a very big thing about seeing the shoreline. What is the purpose of that?
Okay, that was the definition of Mayim Sheyesh Lehem Sof. The water, because the assumption was if somebody was in the water, if you could see the entire shoreline, it meant that you would be able to see the person crawl out, or you would see a body, things like that. So you could define if you need to identify the person.
It works out in Century Village.
Okay, if you think, well, I understand Mel's comment. If you think of a number of the lakes here in Century Village, okay, if for some reason, what? I know it's all one large lake, really, okay, but if you're in a particular, sorry, a particular association, for the most part, okay, I don't know how it is at Ainsley, okay, but I can tell you that if you stand on let's say, one part in the Wolverton area, okay, you can see at least.
Yeah, but you can't see where it goes to.
You're right. You can't go right.
Considered endless.
Right. Okay. No, but so that's the point. And the idea is, if a body washed on shore, you'd be able to then see it.
But you'd see him climb out.
Or ideally, to see the person actually climb out or walk out, whatever it is.
It's endless, so you don't know whether he got out or not.
Right.
See the other side. So
okay.
You have to be okay.
Think of if somebody were to, I'll give a totally different case, Grand Canyon or Yosemite, places like that, where you've got a flowing river. Right? Think of that example as the exact opposite, because there, the current might carry a body, who knows how far.
It says that the yard tape is endless, so.
That depends on where it is.
Well, no, the Gemara says that the
Right.
yard is endless, so.
Right, no, because it goes, starts in the Kinneret and it flows down all the way to the Dead Sea. Okay, having just done that trip, we just, okay, so that's the point. So that, Harvey, that's the reason, that definition, by the way, has been maintained for a long time from the Gemara on, because remember you had examples, and this I'll use to jump into today's Gemara. Well, you had our story today, okay, yesterday, with Rabbi Akiva, Rabbi Meir, that they probably traveled across the parts of the Mediterranean, either to Asia Minor, to what would be now Turkey, or
Great.
theoretically even to Italy, or maybe even to Spain. Okay, right? But by the Middle Ages, we know that there were Jewish merchants, okay, who who probably
Benjamin of Tudela went through all the then known
right,
world.
but you have the example of, let's say, the Caspian Sea, okay, where Ukraine and all that area is, okay, through the Dardanelles, all the way into the Mediterranean, and then out into the Atlantic. So you have that concept then of that it, okay? So that basically clarifies. Well, okay, so I want us to start. Really, we're on the bottom of Kaf Kuf Aleph. Okay, Amud Beis. Okay, very bottom there. Okay, where we saw the story of what happens if the Gentile says, hey, I'll kill you like I killed so-and-so, because he didn't make food for me on Shabbos. Okay, so the Gemara, remember, was trying to clarify at what point can you accept the testimony of a non-Jew, and it suggested that clearly it had to be Masiach Lefi Tumo, okay, that it had to be a statement where he was not giving clear, direct evidence, okay? Why? Because that could be that he might simply say, oh, yeah, that guy's wife, that guy died, let his wife marry. He may have an alternative motive there, or he may whatever, okay? There may be an issue there. So our Gemara then picks up then on the last line there, okay? So what happens there, right? All right, and it said ukatilte, and I killed him. Sham'ad beitaihu va'atai lekamei Abaye. So the wife of that person heard that Gentile give that statement, and she went before Abaye, right? Shahaitat tzlata rigle. All right, but the Gemara now tells us that Abaye wasn't sure what to do in that situation. Okay, and so he brought it, okay, almost for a whole year, we might say. In other words, each occasion at the Shlosh Regalim, when the rabbis would meet for learning, he brought it to discuss it with them, and they still came to no decision, okay, and what to do in that circumstance, right? That's what the Gemara is telling us. And so we continue on the top of the new Amud. Amarla Rav Ada bar Ahava. So Rav Ada bar Ahava was apparently the family therapist in the community, okay? Because what did he do? He understood the difficulty, and he suggests to her, Zil Kame de Rav Yosef, go before Rav Yosef. Now remember, Rav Yosef was important because he really was, besides being blind, of course, okay, he was a very sharp individual, and both Abaye and Rabbah had learned from him at some point.
And he's spoken up in the past.
Right.
Had other cases
Right.
where he
Right.
passed in that issue.
So Rav Ada bar Ahava is explaining to her, the Charif Sakina, he is a sharp knife. In other words, he is a sharp guy, and he should be able to, in a sense, cut to the issue directly and come up with a decision. Okay? Azla Kame, she went before him. What happens? Pshat meha matnidin. Okay? And since there had been no decision previously, he came to an answer from our following Mishnah. Oved kochavim shaya mocher perot b'shuk. If you have a Gentile who is selling produce in the market, va'amar, and he says, Perot halalu shel orlahe. These perot, these produce are from orla, right? From the first growth within that first period. Shel azikahe, or these perot are from an area that was guarded, namely it was prohibited to have that produce because they were watched, guarded, and worked with during the Shemitah year, right? Or shel nata revayi, or that this produce is from the fourth year growth, right? Lo amar klum. He's really not telling us a clear statement of the status of the produce. Why? Lo nitkaven ela lahashbiach mekcho. He's only using that language, the Gentile, because he thinks it will give him a better option of selling his produce, get a better price, whatever, things like that. Okay? Abba Yudin ish tzayden amar. Okay, another sage says the following: Maaseh b'Yisrael v'oved kochavim shehalchu b'derech. We have a situation where there was a Gentile and a Jew that were traveling together along the road. Uba oved kochavim v'amar, and then the Gentile came to the local town. Okay, Haval, what?
Without the Jew.
Right, without the Jew. Okay, Chaval al Yehudei shahaya imi b'derech shamet b'derech v'kvarti. Woe for the Jew that was traveling with me, and because he died along the way, and I buried him. Okay, and the Gemara tells us, in that case, that would be an example of Mashiach Lefi Tumo. Okay, that he's simply telling what happened. He's not really testifying. Right, okay. Vehesio ishto.
Just normal conversation.
It could be part of normal conversation. Okay.
Also, the fact that he gives the specific "I buried him" gives him greater credence.
Okay.
Where he says, "Oh, I kill Jews all the time."
Well,
here he said he died and I buried him.
All right. Another example. Veshuv ma'aseh b'kolar shel b'nei adam. And furthermore, says the Gemara, there was an incident with a group of Jews that were wearing neck chains. Okay? Shahayu mahalchim la'antochia. And they were not walking them to Antochia, which was Antioch, nor in Syria. Right? Uba oved kochavim echad va'amar. And a particular Gentile came and said, Chaval al kolar shel b'nei adam shemetu ukvartim. Woe for that group of Jews that were wearing these neck chains, because they died along the way and I buried them. So again, another example. Furthermore, what happened? Vehesiu et nishotehen, and the rabbis permitted their wives to marry. Okay, another case. Veshuv ma'aseh b'shishim b'nei adam shahayu mahalchim lekarkum beitam. There was another group of incident where there were a group of 60 men who were marching to the siege of Beitar. Uba oved kochavim va'amar, and the Gentile came and said, Chaval al shishim b'nei adam shahayu mahalchim b'derech Beitar. Woe to the 60 men that were walking or traveling on the way, on the road to Beitar, shametu ukvartim, because they died and I buried them, and they were buried. Okay, what happened? Vehesiu et nishotehem, and they allowed their wives to marry. So in all those examples, okay, we see that in these cases, we could accept the testimony of that non-Jew because he was Mashiach Lefi Tumo.
Each story adds more info.
True.
Because even in wartime, where we had in the initial Mishnah that wartime is different, here they still accepted his testimony.
Okay, all right, that would be a valid.
Nowadays, you go over the weekend to the city.
Right. Yeah. All right, please. Matnitin, our new Mishnah, okay, comes back to the question. Remember, we saw discussing the fact of how much of the what simanim, and how much could you use to identify a deceased? So the Mishnah comes back now. Me'idin la'or haner u'la'or halvana. One can give testimony based on light derived from a candle or light derived from the moon. Okay. Umasein al pi batko. And one able, okay, can allow a woman to marry based on a voice
Shouted voice.
that we don't say. Corin Steinsaltz had an interesting translation. I'm not sure I would agree with the exact English language. A disembodied voice. Okay?
Rashi says where you hear a human voice,
you don't see them.
do
Okay.
not see the
Which-
yellow.
which in a
Right, but
sense is a-
let's hold off on the phrase human for a moment.
Well, you need to say that. 'cause
Well,
of
but
the
we're going to
whole
get to that.
discussion.
We're going to get to that. Right. But so the implication is you hear some sort of a voice. But if you, when you look to find the person, you don't find anyone there.
And Bidafka, with the single exception of
All right, we'll get
one,
to it.
it's
We'll get
not a
to it.
bastol as we
Okay.
usually think.
As we usually use the term.
Correct, because then it wouldn't be believed. 'cause
Okay.
the Lo
Well,
Bashanaya.
okay. So what happens? So so how do we understand this idea that if you suddenly hear a voice, what I'd like to think of is maybe the Gemara is going to tell us an example of this.
What is it? The Mishnah
that-
is gonna give you.
It is that that in English, I would use the term some sort of echo.
Okay,
Okay.
that's possible.
Right? Okay, so let's go on now. All right. Ma'aseh be'echad she'amad al rosh hahar. For example, an incident where one stood on the top of a mountain, va'amar, and they said, Ish ploni ben ploni mimakom ploni mate. Okay, that Mr. So-and-so, son of so-and-so, from such and such a place died. Holchu v'lo matzu sham adam. They went up to the mountaintop to see if they could find him, and he wasn't there. There was no
Neither the
person there.
Screamer nor the body.
Okay, v'hesiu et ishto, and the rabbis permitted his wife to marry. V'shuv, and a further example, maaseh b'tzalmon be'echad. Okay, there was a situation in Salmon with one person, she'amar, ani ish ploni ben ish ploni, I am so-and-so, the son of so-and-so, nashcheni nachash v'harei ani mate. And a snake has bitten me and I'm dying, right? V'halchu v'lo hichri'uhu. Okay, they went. V'lo hikiruhu. They went and they didn't recognize him. V'halchu v'hisiu et ishto. But they nevertheless went and they permitted the wife to marry. Okay, all right. Now our mission, our Gemara. Amar Rava Bar Shmuel, he says as follows, Tana. We have the following statement. Beit Shammai omrim, according to Beit Shammai, ein maseina pi basko. We're not permitted to allow a woman to marry based on a basko. Okay, let's see further to be defined. Beit Hillel omrim, when Beit Hillel disagrees, saying maseina pi basko, that we can allow a woman to marry based on this voice. Mai kamashmalan. What is it coming to tell us? Matnitin hi. This is our very Mishnah. Hakamashmalan. De'i mishtakachat stama de'ein masi'in. Okay, that what we've seems to tell us that if we find a situation where it's simply voices something, says something,
If
it's
you
our-
find-
it's not clear. If it's not clear
right.
in the text.
No,
Okay.
if you find a stam mishnah.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. If
or
it's
a
not,
stam
if it's not clearly spelled
No,
out in the
stam
text.
means
Yes, I
anonymous.
understand that. I understand that. Okay, the ein masi'in, we do not marry. Beit Shammai. Then we say that that text, which doesn't spell it out, it's a stam. Okay, it doesn't spell out. In other words, it doesn't say so and so says. Okay, it's not clearly spelled out, right? that has got to be a text based on Beit Shammai. Okay? V'halchu v'lo matzu. What about the situation where we said in our Mishnah, that they looked, they searched, and they didn't find? V'dilma shade hava. Perhaps it was a demon, he asks. Amar Rabbi Yehuda Amar Rab, he says as follows, Shara'ulo demut adam, but maybe they saw the image of a person. So the Gemara now tells us, and hunami damu, the demons also appear in the shape of a person. Right? What happens? Techazule baboa, that they saw a shadow. Ve'in hunami ivlaho baboa. But they, in other words, the demons, also could have a shadow. Techazule baboa de baboa. But maybe they saw the shadow of a shadow. Okay? V'dilma l'didhu itlaho baboa de baboa. But perhaps they also have the shadow of a shadow. Amar Rabbi Chanina, and he responds, Amar li Yonatan sheda baboa itlaho, baboa de baboa leitlaho. Okay, so Rabbi Yehuda Chanina tells us that Yonatan, who happens to be an expert in the knowledge of Shedim, okay, has informed him of the following, that demons may have a shadow, but a shadow of a shadow, demons do not have.
What do you mean by a shadow of a shadow? How can a shadow leave a shadow?
There's another,
That's why they don't say.
there's another Gemara that says at the instant of daybreak or the instant of sunset, where because the sun is right on the horizon, you have cast a very long shadow. If you look carefully within that very long shadow, the ambient light will create a faint, smaller shadow
Right there.
proximate to the person. That's the Gemara's explanation elsewhere.
So you have a short one and a long one.
Correct.
Right.
So it's the shadow within a
That's a guy,
shadow.
that's a lot of guys,
All right, okay.
double shot.
All right, Vadilma Tsara Have. Perhaps it was the co-wife.
Who was up there screaming.
Okay, she was the one yelling, and she's doing it as we've seen before, the Kilkula. All right? Tanana Debe Rabbi Yishmael, and it was taught in the academy of Rabbi Yishmael. B'sha'at hasakana kodvin v'notnin afal pi she'ein makirin. That during the time of the sakana, which we've defined elsewhere as the Hadrianic persecutions primarily, that regarding a get, they can write and give the get even if they don't recognize
The
person.
dying man.
the man. Okay, we come now to another new Mishnah. Amar Rabbi Akiva. Says Rabbi Akiva the following. K'sheyaradati l'neharda'ah la'ever la'aber hashana. When I went to Nehardia in order to incalculate the year. Matzati Nehemia ish beit Dli. We had this piece before, by the way, remember. I encountered Nehemia from the town of Beit Dli. Amarli, and he said to me, Shemati she'ein masi'inat ha'isha be'eretz Yisrael, al pi eid echad. I heard that in the land of Israel, they don't allow a woman to marry based on the testimony of a single witness. Ela Yehuda ben Baba, with the exception of Yehuda ben Baba. Okay, v'nometi lo, and I responded to him. I said to him, Kain hadvarim. That's the situation. That's the case. Amarli, and he said to me, Amor lehem mishmi. Tell them in my name. Atem yodim shehamadina mishubeshet b'gaiso. You know that the land, the state, the area is full of troops. Mikublani mi Rabban Gamliel Hazakin. And I have a Masorah from Rabban Gamliel the elder.
Was the grandfather
Okay,
of the then
right,
current
right. We'll
Rabbi
get to that, right? Shemase'inat ha'isha al pi eid echad. That one is permitted to allow a woman to marry based on the testimony of one witness. Ukeshabati vehirtzeti hadvarim lefnei Rabban Gamliel. And when I came and I lectured these words before the current Nasi, Rabban Gamliel, who was the grandson, as Michael said, of Rabban Gamliel Hazaken, right? Samach ledvarai. He was very happy for my words. Va'amar, and he said, Matzanu chaver the Rabbi Yehuda ben Baba. We have found a colleague, okay, that agrees with Rabbi Yehuda ben Baba. Mitoch hadavar nizkar Rabban Gamliel shenehergu harugim batel arza. Okay, from that, Rabban Gamliel, the current Nasi, remembered that there were men who were killed in Tel Arza. Vehazi Rabban Gamliel, and here we will add Hazaken, all right, his grandfather, right? Vehesi Rabban Gamliel Nishotean al pi edechad, and that his grandfather had permitted the wives of those men to marry based on a single testimony. Vehuchsaku lihiot masiin aed mipi aed. And as a result, they established a precedent, a halachic precedent, that they will allow a woman to marry based on news of her husband being deceased, aid mipi aid, from one witness to another, second-hand word, mipi eved, from the mouth of a servant, male servant, mipi isha, from the mouth of a woman, mipi shivcha, from the mouth of a woman servant. Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Yoshua, the two of them, however, Omrim said, Ein maseinet ha'isha al pi edechad, that we do not allow a woman to marry based on a single witness. Rabbi Akiva Omer, what did he say? Lo al pi isha, not based on a woman, lo al pi eved, and not based on a male servant, v'lo al pi shivcha, and not based on a female servant, v'lo al pi krovim, and not based on relatives. Okay? Now, Gemara says as follows: V'sava Rabbi Akiva al pi isha lo. Does Rabbi Akiva really imply, is he really of the opinion that testimony by a single woman is not viable? Vahatanya, but aren't we taught elsewhere in a Braita? Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar Omer, he says as follows. Okay, Mishum Rabbi Akiva, in the name of Rabbi Akiva, right? Isha ne'emenet lahavi gita mikal v'chomer. A woman is trustworthy to bring her own get based on a kal v'chomer. Uma nashim she'amru chachamim ein ne'emanot lomar meit ba'ala. Whereas, okay, ba'ala ne'emanot lahavi giteh. Okay, whereas we're saying that women, okay, if you're going to say that women are not trustworthy to say that their husband died, are going to be believed to bring their gate. Zo shene'amenet lomar meit ba'ala, one who says that her husband died. Eino din shene'amenet lahavi gita. Is it not logical that she's going to be trustworthy to bring her get? Okay, in other words, and it's as if to say testimony that the husband died is the more stringent. Testimony to bring the get,
because
okay,
she can marry fewer people,
right, is less stringent. Okay, because with the get, as Michael says, pointed out, she can't marry a Kohen, for example, things like that. Okay. Nashim sha'amru chachamim hu delo mehimne, those women that the sages specifically said are not to be trustworthy. Okay, in other words, those 5, 6, or 7 that we had earlier, right? Isha ba'alma mehemna, but I'll call it a normal, a regular woman is believable.
A woman with no bias.
Okay, right. Lo kasha, that's not a problem. Kan Okay, we can say what happened here. Kodim shehechaziku was before they established this
New meaning.
precedent. Kan la'achar shehechaziku, and here it was after they established that halachic precedent. Okay, our new Mishnah. Let's go on. Matnitin says as follows. Amrulo. Okay, they said to him. Okay. All right.
He
Right,
told over the
following?
Maaseh of
All right.
the travel.
Okay, Maaseh b'bnei Levi shahalchu l'tzoar. Okay, they said to him the following. Okay, all right. There was an incident regarding the sons of Levi that traveled to Tzoar, Ir Hatamarim, the date city. Okay,
They were going on dates.
okay, not quite. They were going to eat the dates there because that Tzoar was, remember, the area of that Jericho and that whole area, which is well known for dates, right? Actually, we were there when this past trip.
My wife.
Yeah, I'm sure for a date, to eat a date. Okay. All right. V'chala echad mehem, and one of them got sick. V'havi'uhu b'pundak, okay, and they brought him to an inn. Okay. All right. So what happens? Ubechazaratam, and on their return, amru lepundakit, they said to the female innkeeper the following. Ayeh Chavarena, where's our friend? Okay, no meat lahem, she told them. Mate ukvartiv. He died and I buried him. Vehesiu et ishto, and they permitted his wife to marry. Velo tahei kahenet. All right, kepundakit. Aren't we going to say that a woman, for example, who is who is Jewish, and she could be the daughter of a Kohen or an Israelite even, okay, isn't she going to be even more trustworthy than this female innkeeper? Amar lahu. They said to them, if you're going to say and compare it to the female innkeeper, right? Ne'emenet, then a Jewish woman would be believed. What happens? Hapundakit hotzia lehem maklo v'tarmilo v'sefer Torah shahaya biyado. That what did she do to show the case? She had further proof because she showed them his knapsack and his staff and his sefer Torah that was along with it. All right, we're going to go on a bit on the second Amud. All right, till about 2/3 down. Okay, says the Gemara. Mai geriute the puntakit. What's unfavorable about this woman innkeeper? Amar Rav Kahana, he says as follows. Pundakit overet kochavim haita. This female innkeeper was a idol worshiper. Umesicha lafi tuma. But nevertheless, she spoke, so to speak, off the cuff. Haita. Right? She spoke right. And what did she say? Ze maklo, v'ze tarmilo, v'ze kavar shekavar tivbo. This is his staff, and this is his knapsack, and here's the grave where I buried him. Okay. Okay, so the Gemara house says going to raise an issue here. V'chein tani abba berei de Rav ben Yome bar Chia, and he says as follows. And this is considered to be a challenge. Pundakit overet kochavim haita umesicha lefi tuma haita. If you're saying that this female innkeeper was an idol worshiper, but she was nevertheless speaking off the cuff, so to speak, ze maklo v'ze tarmilo v'ze kever shekvarti v'chulei, saying here's his staff, and here's his knapsack, and here's the grave where I buried him. Okay, all right. how can you really say, the Gemara is going to ask, that this was really speaking offhanded? Okay. Vaha, okay. Here they asked her the question, Aye chavarenu, that they asked her a specific question, where is our friend? All right. Ka'amre laho. Okay. Isn't that what they said to her? Ka'amre la. So therefore it implies she was giving a response to their question. And therefore, how can you really say that she was speaking offhandedly? Right? Okay, so let's go on. Kevan dechazitinhu. Okay, that what happened was once she saw them, bachya, she burst into tears. She was crying. Amrula, and they said to her, right? Aye chavarenu. They said, where is our colleague, our friend? Amra lahem. And then she said to them, Mate ukvarti. He died and I buried, and we buried him. Tana Rabbanan, a new piece from our text. It says the following Braita. Ma'aseh ba'adam echad, sheba laha'id al ha'isha lifnei Rabbi Tarfon. There once was an incident where a man came to give testimony about a woman, okay, in front of Rabbi Tarfon. Amar lo, and then he said to him, Bani, he'ach ata yodea be'edut isha zo? Young man, so to speak, my son, how do you know about the ability to give testimony on behalf of this woman? Amar, he said, Ani v'hu hainu hochim b'derech. He and I were traveling along the road. V'radaf acharenu gi'es. And a group of soldiers were chasing after us. V'nitla b'yichur shel zayed. And he grasped hold of a branch of a olive tree. Upashcho, and he tore it off. V'hichzir et hagiyes la'achorav. Okay, and he chased the soldiers away. Okay.
Simpler time.
Okay,
Stick
right.
to it.
Amartilo, and I said to him, Aryeh, lion, yashikochacha. Okay, congratulations. Amarli, and he said to me, Minayin atayodea sha'aryeh shmi. How do you know
My name is
that my name is Aryeh? Kach korino ti be'iri. That's what they call me in my city, in my town. All right? Yochanan beRebbi Yonatan, Aryeh de Mikfar Shichya. I am Yochanan, the son of Yehonatan, the lion of the village of Shichya. What happened? V'yamim chala umet. Days later, he took sick and died. Okay, and what happened? V'hesi Rabbi Tarfon et ishto. And based on this testimony, Rabbi Tarfon permitted his wife to marry. So the Gemara now asks a question about Rabbi Tarfon's behavior, right?
He was a champion.
Okay. Rabbi Tarfon, lo bai drisha v'chakira. Are we saying that Rabbi Tarfon did not require some sort of interrogation? Okay, cross-examination, interrogation on this situation. Vahatanya, because aren't we taught elsewhere in a Braita? Ma'aseh ba'adam echad, sheba lifnei Rabbi Tarfon. There was an incident,
Same story.
okay, right, where a certain man came before Rabbi Tarfon, laha'id edut isha, to give testimony about a woman. Amar lo, and Rabbi Tarfon said to him, Bani, my son, he'acha toyodea edut zo. How do you know about this testimony? How can you give testimony on her behalf? Amarli, he said to me, Ani v'hu hayinu hochim b'derech. He and I were traveling along the road. V'daraf, right? What happens? We were being chased. Acharinu gies. Behind us was a group of soldiers. V'nitla biyichud te'ena, and he grabbed hold of a branch of a, in this case, he says a date tree. Upashcho, and he broke it off. V'hichzir et hagies la'achorav, and he forced the soldiers back, right? Amarti lo. So now, I said to him, Yasher kochacha, congratulations, are you? Amarli, he said to me, Yafek kivanta lishmi, well that you called me by name, right? Shekach korinoti be'iri, because that's how they call me in my city. Yochanan ben Yonatan Aryeh de Mikfar Shechia. Yochanan, the son of Yonatan, the lion of the village of Shechia. V'yamim chalav v'meit. Days later, he took sick and died. Okay? So Amar Lo, he said to him, so this is Rabbi Tarfo now in his cross-examination of the young man. Okay? Lo kach amartali, wasn't this what you said to me? Yochanan ben Yonatan, the Mikfar Shechia Aryeh? Weren't you saying that your name was Yochanan, the son of Yonatan, from the village of Shechia, a lion Shechia? Amarle, he said to me, Lo, no. Elakach amarti lach. This is what I said to you. Yochanan ben Yonatan Aryeh the Mikfar Shechia, that I was Yochanan, the son of Yonatan, the lion of the village of Shechia. V'didek alav shnayim ushlosha pa'amim. And he was exact 2 or 3 times. In other words, he repeated the same story a number of times. Okay? In other words, his statement, all right, was consistent in all these exam
so in
statements.
One version, there was no Drisha Vehikira, and in the second version,
there was significant. V'chivein et dvarav. And he
Only
was,
then.
as I said, his statements were consistent. V'hesi Rabbi Tarfon et ishto. And Rabbi Tarfon married the wife of the man. And that's where we're going to stop. And we'll finish up from there this afternoon. Okay?
Yeah.
By the way, some people don't want to be the Gemara, they'll be